I know, 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 I know,
I know.
love is what we need more
Love is
of.
what we need more of.
Peace will surely follow love.
Peace will surely follow love.
Whatever the problem, I know we can solve
We can
them.
solve them.
You know and I know.
Towards the end of last year, CDC recently released what they have estimated to be the new incidence rate per year for HIV infections, which moved from 43,000 new infections per year to 56,000, approximately 56,000 per year. That's a huge increase. With the new infections as well, there hasn't really been a change as far as who's most greatly impacted by HIV and AIDS. It still continues to significantly impact African Americans in all jurisdictions, including Georgia. Georgia, the majority of the cases here in Georgia, approximately 75 to 76% of the cases, continue to be African Americans. African Americans make up about 29% of the population in the state of Georgia. So we have already, just looking at those basic numbers, a huge issue that we need to start to address and how we're going to campaign to reduce or eliminate the spread of HIV and AIDS in our African American communities.
I know, I know, I know, I know, I know,
I know, I know,
I
know.
I know.
I really do believe, as I've talked informally over the last years with people about why they hesitate or resist clinical research, oftentimes you hear about the historical context in which Black people were abused medically. And so I think that we really can't make as much progress as we would hope to unless we begin to dialogue about some of these egregious historical experiences that Black people have endured. There are a number of medically documented cases in which it shows that Black people were medically misinformed. The United States Public Health Service conducted the Tuskegee study. It did not treat syphilis in Black men even after penicillin was identified in 1947 as the cure for syphilis. And a quote by Bill Clinton often really just helps to put this historical atrocity in perspective. The United States government did something that was wrong. Deeply, profoundly, and morally wrong. It was an outrage to our commitment to integrity and equality for all citizens, clearly racist.
The fear with me with medicines and doctors is that Tuskegee did happen, and I'm an educated African American man, but still yet I am fearful when it comes down to dealing with medical care, physicians and needles, and even today. And it came from my grandfather and my dad, and it still lives today.
Once we understand the history, and once we are aware of the history, and once we admit to the history, both researcher and participant, then I think the genuine and authentic dialogue can begin.
The first phase of a clinical study is where they want to test whether the drug, or in this case the vaccine, is safe and effective. They're just looking for safety. Okay, so they're not looking for whether it can prevent HIV in someone who is high risk for developing it. They just want to look at normal volunteers, so people who are low risk, people who aren't engaged in activities or having potential to obtain the virus from lifestyle or other means, and determine whether if they give them the vaccine, are they going to get sick. That's the first phase. Once they've got that data, which is what we participated in the first phase, then they move on to the second phase, which is to look at people who are high risk or more high risk, and see if the vaccine can actually prevent the HIV from developing the infection. And so I think that the study that I was in was the first phase, they were able to get data to move on to the second phase, where they're really looking at, is the vaccine effective? And then the third phase is a larger study of the same thing, of the second phase, with more high-risk people, larger numbers, different groups all over the world. And that's when, after the third phase, they're ready to go into, giving it out to the general population. So I got the vaccine before I met my husband, about a year or two before, and so when I met him, I explained to him that I'd been given a vaccine for HIV, but that there was no way that he could obtain HIV from me. The fact that I'd gotten the vaccine only means that I can make antibodies against the virus. It doesn't mean I can transmit the virus because I don't have the virus. I was exposed to such a small portion of it that it didn't make me infectious. And not always is hard to explain to somebody. Of course, he was a bit startled when he first heard that, but again, it's a matter of explaining the process of what a vaccine does. If a person can understand that, then they would not be afraid. So if they test me for those tests where you're looking for the real virus, they will not see that. But if they test for the antibodies, that's when they'll see it. And the good news is, apparently, and this has been happening with some other volunteers, maybe you guys can speak to that, the antibodies decrease over time. So those of us who were given the vaccine, who developed antibodies, apparently mine are now negative. So I had them for a while, but now they've gone away.
I honestly didn't develop any side effects. No nausea. The care that you get at the Hope Clinic is so impeccably good that any little thing that develops, they take note of. And I honestly didn't have any side effects.
As I also know, being in research, we have very few participants who are minority, African American, and it's important to have participation from us because a lot of times medicines work differently in us than they do in our counterparts.
I've never thought about HIV and AIDS vaccines in the same breath that I thought about polio or my flu shot or anything, because it's never ever expressed in those terms. And I think language, what they say, the problem with language is interpretation. I think that's one of the barriers to getting black folk more interested in doing vaccine trials with regard to our HIV status or AIDS status. Because I never thought about, I get a flu shot every year. That's a vaccine, and I know that they're giving me the flu. Okay, I get, I've had my measles shot, mumps shot, but it's always separate. The more information we put on the table, information has to be overkill. Because any little bitty thing could be the one thing that sparks the interest of the community you're trying to reach to come on down.
I've been interested in clinical trials and I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. Well, it's about the future of people, of our people. And if we don't step into this and assist in helping to create a vaccine, who knows how many more years before this thing takes us out. So we all have to participate. I never realized the need that there is for participants. And after this session, I have decided to contact Emory and see if I can maybe qualify to be a participant.
Whatever the problem, I know we can solve
Sovereign.
You know and I know. What would you demand? What would you fight for?
What would you fight for?
A world without poverty.
No poverty.
Or a world under your control.
Under your control.
Children